Call to order this meeting of the Adams County, Ohio Valley Board of Education. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bess?
Yes. And I ask everyone to rise for the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion and a second for approval of the agenda as read.
So moved.
Mrs. Campbell has moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dr. Shipley has seconded. Any additions or corrections?
Yes, ma'am. Under Personnel, Section D, there is an addition of item number 8, resignation of sub-cook Brenda Jackson, effective May 25th.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bess?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Sees?
Hi guys, thank you for coming out on this evening, and my name's Rich Sees. I work as a superintendent here. It's my 6th year of being here, and I asked the board and Mr. Schweitzer if I could just have a few moments, and if you oblige me, to tell you where this came about and how this came about from my perspective. So back in 2015, I had the privilege to interview for a job here. And this finishes my 6th year, and I'm grateful that the buses ran today and all the kids were safe. And but it's finishes 6 years. And in that process, though, of interviewing for the job, they often give you a brochure for superintendent search or for a treasurer search. And what they do is they give you the information on the demographics of the community, of the school. There's also a financial section in there. And the one thing that I noticed right away, because obviously when you go into a new district, you want to make sure it's healthy financially, things are sound. And we all know that anytime you take a job like this, there's all kinds of unforeseen things, such as COVID. Who knows that we had to live through that. But the financials in that, I noticed that there was a 0.5 on there. And the 0.5 of that inside millage was reflective of those elementary schools that we have that are built. And the elementary schools, as to the best of my knowledge, they're 11 years old. Your high schools are 24 years old. So my concern then, as it is today, is how do we designate dollars and cents to maintain and fix up those facilities? And in my discussion with Mr. Schweitzer and in a previous arrangement at my district back in Coldwater, we did something similar where in that particular case, a bond levy, a building levy, such as what we have here, the high schools, they came off the books. In other words, they were paid for. Okay? So, and to that, it's about 3.5 mils. And so I understand as having a family of 11 what it means to run and have a budget, trying to put running shoes or clothes or feed the kids. I understand all that. I've always understood that. So for me, in my discussion with Mr. Schweitzer, it was what are we going to do to designate some monies, because their building's 24 years old, 11 years old, and I'm going to let Mr. Wolf here, our facilities director, speak to some of those issues so you know what we're looking at. This is a process. This is the second of 2 meetings we've had so far. I know the board has a work session on June 8th and 9th where we can discuss additional meetings. Maybe it would be more convenient for us to be in the Peebles area or the North Adams area so that people can have a chance to come in here and voice your opinion. So from my perspective, that's what I want to be able to do, because it's this simple for me. My job is to find, whether it's Mr. Wolf or it's a principal, what they need to do their jobs. And the principal, of course, is going to come to me and Mr. Schweitzer and say, here's what my teachers need to do their jobs. So I just wanted to give you the brief, that's kind of the background of how this all developed over the last 6 years. Nothing more, nothing less. So if Mr. Wolf, if you would come up here. Now, Steve Wolf is our facilities director. I think if you look at our facilities, you'll see that they're well kept, and hopefully he'll be able to tell you that in his short PowerPoint demonstration.
Well kept, except for tonight when the air conditioning's not working real well. But
Mr. Wolf, I'm going to interrupt you here for just one moment. Before you start in on describing some of the things that we're going to have coming up in our future, just do a real quick run through of some of the significant things that we have done in this district to try to look forward for tax savings for our
It's in his presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. You already had that in there, Steve? Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I knew they said
Yeah.
you were going to present
I never,
about our problems.
I never, I'm a taxpayer too. I never want to talk
Yes.
about new money without talking. My first question anytime that anybody talks to me about taxes is I want to know, have you been diligent with the
Yes.
money that you've had in the past 10, 20 years? How have you been spending the money you've got? Grew up poor, and even in my own home now, my first thing is there anything we can cut? I will touch on that. And I'll warn you, I kind of gave this speech once as a practice, because I'm not a public speaker, as you're going to find out here in the next few minutes. And Miss Spencer said, she doesn't mince words with me, it's too darn long. And then I shaved it down and whipped it into shape a little bit, and I gave it to Mr. Sees and Mr. Schweitzer, and they said, it's still too long. So hopefully I've got it down here. I'll try to move quick, but this is the main thing you need to know. Every bit of this will be saved on YouTube, where you can, what I really encourage you to do, I work for you. I ask you to come, I won't even call it my office, come to our office, come on in, and the stuff, in the essence of time, I'm going to kind of blow through a lot of numbers and a lot of slides quickly, but I'd really encourage you to call me. I live and breathe this stuff. I kind of geek out on it. I like it. And I would love to sit down with anybody and go through it. And the reason I say that is we had, I know you've had to hear this story a million times, but we had, prior to me hiring on here, a gentleman who was our business affairs director. He's now a superintendent for a nearby vocational school. And he had gone to college to be a teacher, and he became a teacher in our school district, and then he rose to the level of being a principal. And then he became the business manager, and about a year into his tenure, he actually campaigned for me to get hired in. And he told me, and I don't think he'd mind me telling this now, he said, 2 weeks into this thing, my mind was blown. I thought I'd been a teacher, I'd been a principal. I know everything that it takes to run a school district and what goes on behind the scenes and what it takes to operate a school district. And he said, I'm a little out of my league, and I never had a clue there was this much going on but that people don't normally see every day, just to keep things running and operational. That's what I'm trying to capture here a little bit. So with that, and because our air is so good tonight, I just thought I'd start our PowerPoint with a picture of an iceberg, just to make everybody cool off a little bit, maybe. Didn't work, did it? Okay. All right, so real quick, we'll kind of blow through our buildings here, and I'm not going to try to touch every outbuilding, every barn, every concession stand. I'm talking about our central administration building, our bus garage, and our school buildings in particular here. We have, obviously, dozens of other buildings, but our big buildings. So we have our, I won't read this line by line, I'll let you do that, and some of this bits of information in here I'll tie together here near the end. But we have our central administration building, which is going on 24 years old now. Maybe the key thing I would point out on there is, under plumbing, we have a lift station. I only make mention of that. You know, we all take it for granted at our houses. We flush the toilet and things do what they're supposed to do. We actually, in a number of our buildings, have to help our waste get to where it needs to go, and it's a plant that's involved there, and it's a little bit of skilled labor, and it's a lot of maintenance to make that happen. And this building being one of those. We have our bus garage, which is the old guy on the block. It's 75 years old. Most of you know from this area, it was never really intended to be a bus garage. It's been a grocery store. It's been a car lot. And we've used it for a bus garage for a number of years now. And, you know, there's some challenges that come with that, using a building like that as a bus garage. We have the building you're in, the Career Technical Center, which was built in '78. It's 43 years old. We have our exceptional education building, which houses our special education staff. We have, you're allowed to clap when it gets to your school if you want to, by the way. You have North Adams Elementary, which is, you know, one of our new kids on the block, except they're not so new anymore, but they're 11 years old. Very proud of this building. If you go down to the bottom line, and all of our buildings do really well on this, and I'll touch on this, but this building is operating at 63 cents a square foot, which is about a dollar less per square foot than most K-12 schools in America do, which means in a 100,000 square foot building, if different, and I'm not taking credit, this is our maintenance, this is everybody involved, but if different sets of people were running this building, you'd probably pay about $100,000 a year more in utilities than you are right now. And North Adams High School, 105,000 square feet, lots of mechanical things, lots of electrical things I'm trying to point out there. Peebles Elementary, Peebles High School, West Union Elementary, and West Union High School. So some of that stuff written in there will kind of come into play as we move through here. And hang in there, you're about halfway through already. So I'll have to move to the computer for this. So one thing we do in the building trades world, if there's any architect, engineer types in the crowd, you'll recognize that acronym ASHRAE. It's the American Society of Heating, Air Conditioning, and Refrigeration Engineers. There's ASHRAE standards out there so that you help predict the end of life cycle for equipment in buildings. And let me try this. Don't know how well this is going to show up here. Probably not great, but so get on my glasses. If you can't see it, it lists things like heat pumps, rooftop air conditioners, air washers, ductwork, evaporative condensers, all the kinds of things we have in school buildings. And it will tell, these aren't somebody's guesses, these are engineered statistics, the average lifespan. And just about everything on that list, you'll see has an expectancy life chart of life cycle of 15 years, maybe on the low, some stuff 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And this goes on and on and on for all types of building equipment. And point being there is that many of our building equipment, in our high schools in particular, is past their life cycle. We have a neighboring school that was built at the same time as our high schools, used to be part of our district. You know, they had $400,000 worth of chillers just go bad one day, so you got no air conditioning. It's an emergency when that happens. We got another 3 or 4 years out of ours through good PM, preventive maintenance, I think, and we recently had to change ours, except we had to do it in 3 high schools. $1 million project. It's something you would never know when you drive up to our district. It's not like having a new running track or a new facade on the front of your building. To people going to working here and kids going here and anything else, just, you know, nothing happened. We're $1 million lighter in our checkbook just to keep the air conditioning moving. And that's one of several things that I think as you move forward in the lifespan of a building that we're going to have. I think I just messed that whole thing up probably. Let me move back over here. So today, just kind of randomly, I talked to a lot of other people that have similar job as me in other school districts, and they're always kind of intrigued on just how big an expanse our district is. And these are some things that kind of popped into my head today when I was trying to put together a presentation of kind of what makes us a little unique. We have over 1 million square feet of asphalt, be it roads, parking lots, driveways, whatnot. And you know, with that, on a rotational basis every year, we pick 2 or 3 schools and we reseal the parking lot, repaint them. So that's just one example of an ongoing cost. You know, a lot of school districts, neighboring school districts around us have, you know, a tenth of that. You might have 100,000 square feet parking lot or something like that, but we've got over 1 million square feet. We have 190 individual parking lot lights. It takes a boom truck to get up into and service, and with 190 of them, there's 1 or 2 or 5 that need service probably continually. We have, just like your furnace at home has a filter you change every now and then, we have 1,418 filters in our district. We have 95,000 of linear feet of underground piping that you'll never see when you come to our buildings, but we know it's there. We have to take care of it and maintain it. I did the math today. That's enough piping to reach from Judge Spencer's courthouse to Maysville, Kentucky. And we have that much piping underneath of our school buildings, keeping them warm and cool. We have over 500 acres of grounds. We have 300 heat pumps, 17 industrial boilers, 66 air handling units, 250 variable air volume units, 50 cabinet unit heaters, 4 sewage lift stations, and 6 solar arrays. And I could go on and on and on and on and on. So there's a lot going on mechanically, electrically, plumbing-wise, and stuff like that in our district. So as we try to do facility planning, you know, there's basically 3 types of maintenance, I'd say. Preventive maintenance, things that we work on before things break to extend their life cycle. Unplanned maintenance, that's the things that break every day, that no matter how hard you try, you can't plan for. And planned maintenance. So some upcoming planned maintenance things that we know we're going to have to do. Pop this up here. Yeah, great.
Eddie put that on a timer. You ran out of time, Steve.
Yeah, I think so. Well, file this in the category of things that you can get from me after the meeting or in the days or weeks to come, which kind of stings because this was a important piece of all this, but I'll go from memory. We got notified by the state of Ohio that our elevators in our high schools, we actually got notified by the company that put the elevators in originally that our elevator systems are becoming outdated. We won't be able to buy repair parts for them anymore. And because of that, the state says we have about 3 or 4 years to get new elevators in here. And I think that's at $250,000, $300,000 to have that done. This is putting me on the spot to try to remember.
Fire panels is in that same way.
Fire panels, our fire panels at our high schools, same way. The ASHRAE chart I showed you said you're doing good if you get 15, 18 years out of a fire panel. These are 24 years old. We've maintained them well, but they're on their last life. Here's a good one, building automation system. I just talked to a neighboring school district today. In 9 years, they're getting ready to put in their 3rd BAS system, $250,000. We've nursed this one along for 24 years. We can't get parts for it anymore. We can't nurse it along anymore. That's going to be about $400,000 per high school to change that. Okay. Chillers we just did. Yeah, we did chillers within the last year or so. It was $1 million. You guys are killing. Yes, bleachers. So that's bleachers in our high school. 18, 20 years if you really baby and nurse and take care of bleachers. And we've had some recent problems with our bleachers. Our bleachers are set to be replaced out, and that's about $250,000 a high school. So what all that kind of means is, kind of a quick summary here. We're talking about 711,000 square feet of building. Our average age of our school buildings, I'm not counting the old bus garage in here to throw off the curve, our average building's about 21 years old, but this building's considerably older. So again, not to skewer the statistics, even if you take it out of the equation, our average building's about 17 and a half years old. Our annual utility cost last year for all of our school buildings is $658,000. Now, to Ms. Bess's point about being fiscally responsible, if you take the amount of electricity we used last year and multiply it by the $1.56 national average that K-12 schools typically spend, and I mean the school district next door, Western Brown, Eastern Brown, Pike, all around us, if we would have used utilities at a rate that they typically do, we would have spent over $1 million in utilities. And we were doing that when I hired in here in 2008. But through a combination of things, some of the things like you see outside your window there, we shaved that number way down, $658,000 last year. So our planned O&M expenditures over the next 4 or 5 years, which was on the spreadsheet that I was able to bring up for you, is about $1.4 million of things that we're either mandated to do, we're being told we have to do, we know we have to do because they're breaking down, we're spending too much money in them. It's $1.4 million a year. Our unplanned maintenance over the last 4 or 5 years has averaged about $700,000 a year. Seems like a big number when you break it over 7 or 8 buildings. And so what I've done is add our utility cost, our planned maintenance, our unplanned maintenance. I actually knocked off about $300,000 because the theory being when you buy new bleachers, you're not going to have to put as much unplanned maintenance into them because you got new equipment. When you buy a new BAS system, your unplanned maintenance number should go down. So I took about a 30% reduction on that. And then we also get the 0.5% maintenance fund on our elementaries only, and we only get that for a number of years more. But I went in to be conservative and took that off at $288,000. And that leaves a projected operations and maintenance cost over the next 4 or 5 years of about $2.2 million a year. So here's the iceberg again. And the real reason for the iceberg was I tried to draw this conclusion. I don't think the font's big enough to see it, but the iceberg on top of the water is what I would call the building that you see. That was your building project. Those are the elementaries you built. Those are the high schools you built. The part underneath the water is what I would call the operations and maintenance cost. This is from Money Magazine. True cost of the first 40 years of ownership for a school building. And you can see the cheap, people never believe this, but it's pretty industry-wide accepted. The cheapest part of building a school building, or excuse me, of owning a school building is building the school building. You'll spend about, over the whole life cycle cost of a building, you'll spend about 25% of your money in architectural fees and getting the building out of the ground and building the building. Your utilities, maintenance, and upkeep for the next 39 years after that will triple the amount of money that it took to actually build the building. So, what we've done to be good stewards of your money so far, I'm going to have to read this because I can't. And when I say we, I mean everybody in the audience, everybody watching on TV, the board that sits here, the board that sat here previous to this board in years past. One thing you all did was you partnered with the OFSC when you built your elementary schools, and you got a really good deal, to be honest with you. Probably the best that's ever been done in Ohio. You paid 13 cents on the dollar for your elementary schools. It's like having an 80% coupon off. So you got into those buildings considerably cheaper than a lot of parts of the state did. And that's a good thing. The lower that number is, the better you're doing. So kudos to getting that done. But since those buildings were built through the OSFC has this thing they do when they're done helping you with a building project. They send in this is kind of an important point. They send in a third party. In our case, it was Four Seasons Mechanical. And they tell you, they do an analysis of your buildings. And they say, this is what it's going to take for you to run your buildings. They told us it was going to cost $1.65 per square foot in utilities. They were wrong. Right? We're saving a lot of money doing that, way less than they said we could. But of note here, they said that it would take 7 full-time maintenance people to operate these buildings, and we're doing it with 4. They said it would take 34 full-time janitor and custodial staff, and we're doing it with 23. Now, what's that mean? That means we're using 14 fewer employees in the service part of your buildings than what the state of Ohio said we would need to. Now, this board and the board that sat here before them would have been well within their rights to make those hires. If anybody said, you don't need that many, they could have showed them this report and said, yes, we do. The state of Ohio says we need it. And if they would have done that, they would have spent about $900,000 more a year between salaries and health insurance benefits. But they haven't done that. I won't say they've avoided $900,000 in year spending since our new elementaries were built. The people of this community were very, very wise to invest in energy efficient buildings. Your elementaries have geothermal heating and cooling, daylight harvesting. Our staff here has implemented some very rigorous energy controls to keep our utility costs down. And we've constructed solar arrays that produce over 1.2 million kilowatt hours of electricity per year. Yeah, no. I'll give you a 2-minute break from me talking, although you're going to have to hear me talk again on the TV, but as it's just kind of a testimonial to that solar project. And maybe more important than the video this self that you're getting ready to watch, 2 minutes, is this board, nobody in this school district really came to the maintenance people and the custodians and the janitors and said, get our utilities down, or go find a way to make us energy. These people did this on their own. And sometimes we get used to it because we live around it, we don't think much about it. In this instance, the Ohio Conservatory contacted us and said, we want to do a profile on you. This is neat what you did, because we got all these without dipping into any taxpayer dollars at all. Okay, we built solar arrays that are saving us over $250,000 a year in utility costs and never raised taxes 1 penny to do it. We just took our savings that we weren't sending to AEP and used them to finance and buy. So it's the same money going out. So instead of sending it to a utility company, we send it to this solar company to buy these. Now we own them free and clear. They're paying us dividends every year. I'll play this video for you real quick. Or maybe I won't.
Here we go.
Oh, okay. Our school district is located about 50, 60 miles east of Cincinnati, a couple hours south of Columbus. We're kind of on the edge of Appalachia, very rural. We have 3 different campuses, one in West Union, one here in Seaman, Ohio, and one in Peebles, Ohio. And our school district had determined that we wanted to reduce operating costs any way we could. And one way that we solved to do that was to become more energy efficient. So in time, we entered into a partnership with a company to do our first couple of solar projects. Those projects were roof-mounted arrays on top of a couple of our elementary buildings.
We put together a financial package where we could put the solar project in place and take advantage of the tax credits from the for-profit side, offer the schools the power at a discounted rate, and then after a period of time, after the tax credits had expired, and we were able to sell the array back to the schools at a discounted price.
In time, we took those utility savings and actually purchased the solar arrays. So we now own those outright, and everything they produce is free energy to us. We began that project as a purchase power agreement in 2011, and in 2014, we actually had generated enough money to buy the panels outright. Every school building, except for one building in our entire district, is at least partially powered by solar. So we've calculated that since our inception with solar, we've generated nearly 8 million kilowatt hours of electricity, and that's saved us
almost $900,000 worth of money.
That original array that we built in 2011 is still running at peak efficiency today. We've had absolutely no outages. As far as the basic technology for providing power from panels to the schools, there's been no downtime and no interruption.
The community really likes the fact that we have solar, and they know that it's good use of their tax dollars, and it's saving us money, and it's allowing us to put money into the classroom, into the students, as opposed to spending it on utility. I think they also like it because our students, our teachers are able to plug in and see what we're generating.
They are absolutely my favorite client ever because they were the first ones to take a serious step forward. They bought in, they saw the common sense application of a great technology, and they've reaped the benefits from it.
And then in addition to our solar projects, we've done a few house build projects, same concept, where we borrow some money at 0% interest to put in more energy efficient boilers and equipment like that, and then use our utility savings to actually pay for the equipment. And then, of course, after it's paid off, then we just kind of reap the benefits of that. Those boiler improvements and LED lighting improvements are saving us $189,000 a year in utilities. We have gone out, and there are energy grants available that will reward you for doing what we've done, and we've gone out and got 3 of those checks, the biggest one being $104,000. We have a $53,000 one and a $12,000 one. And so between our solar generation and operating our utilities lower than the national baseline, we are offsetting our utility spending by almost $451,000 annually. In addition to that, I used a very conservative number here, but when I first started working here, our maintenance, there were good people that worked here. It's just that times evolve and things change, and we operate differently now. But we used to hang pencil sharpeners and fix squeaky doors, and if it was much beyond that, we're calling somebody from Columbus or Cincinnati or Maysville. We don't do that now. The first 3 companies that I've got listed there, JCI, Genesis Mechanical, and JB Mechanic. JCI had a $100,000 a year preventive maintenance contract when I started here. We now do all that work in-house. We don't sub any of that out. Genesis Mechanical has moved down from about $80,000 a year to probably about $20,000 a year. And J&B Mechanical, we don't even, and they're not an Adams County business, but we don't even do business, we don't have any contracts with them anymore. So being very conservative, I would say our maintenance staff saves us at least $100,000 a year, and that number is probably triple or quadruple in certain years, and things that we fix in-house now that most school districts, I can tell you, sub out and have other people come in. They just don't have the kind of staff that can work on those kind of things, and we're doing that in-house. So to try to summarize here real quick, we have at least $900,000 in avoided cost in operating at a lower than recommended staffing level by the state of Ohio. And note that we're operating less than what they said we could, and we're doing it more efficiently than anybody around us. Testament to our people. $451,000 annual utility reduction, and also equipment savings. When you run your equipment less, not only do you use less electricity, but you make it last longer. And at least $100,000 annual reduction in things that we don't outsource for maintenance, adding up to almost $1.5 million that I would contend, if this school district were picked up and placed in another part of Ohio, the taxpayers around that school district would be paying. We also, for 1 year, were able to sell renewable energy credits off of our solar fields, and we, between that and our utility rebates, gained $221,000. And I kind of ended with this goofy slide. It says what it says. I won't read it, but there's a balance between, here's where I'm coming from, and this is just my kind of emotional plea, and I guess it's more to the Board of Education than anybody else. We were right when we said we could run this district with less people, less maintenance people, and less janitorial people than what the state said we could. And we were right when they called us crazy and said you'll never operate this school district at less than $1 a square foot. We were right about those things. Our department has been all about saving all the money, in everything that we've done, and everything I've shown here, and in many more things don't even have time to show, but I'd be glad to show to anybody that wants to see them. And I say that as 12 years in a row of coming to you and bringing you big cardboard checks and saving you money. If I come to you, first time in 12 years, and say, we're going to need more money than we've got, I wasn't wrong on those things. I'm not wrong on this either. I look around with a little envy at neighboring school districts, and we're very unique not to have any revenue stream coming in that's earmarked towards maintenance. Very unique. A lot of those have happened through passage of inside millage or emergency bonds or whatever. You're hard pressed to find very many school districts that aren't tucking something away for future maintenance. So that's my spiel. I just want to give an overview of both of those things. What we have staring us in the face, I apologize, the spreadsheet didn't work. What I think we've done well, and what I think we need to do in some way, shape, fashion, or form moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
Good evening. I'm Brian Schweitzer, the district's treasurer and financial advisor. Ohio law and the Ohio Constitution provide governmental entities with ways to increase revenues without going to a public vote. The state of Ohio can increase the state income tax, increase the state sales tax, increase cigarette tax, alcohol taxes, gasoline taxes, and place registration fees on your vehicles. All increases and all without a public vote. The Adams County Commissioners can increase the county sales tax, increase gasoline taxes, place registration fees on vehicles, increase hotel and motel lodging taxes, all tax increases without a public vote. Your local townships can place vehicle registration fees on your cars without a public vote. School districts are allowed to move inside millage. However, this Board of Education is in a unique position. They can move inside millage and actually reduce your taxes. If this board moves the inside millage, the amount of taxes you pay next January 2022 for school district operations will be less than the amount of the taxes you would pay this coming July. Further, over 145 districts in the state have moved some or all of their inside millage, including our neighbors in Eastern Local, Fayetteville, and Memphis. One big item to keep in mind: the moving of inside millage cannot be used for salaries or operational costs. State law requires the Board of Education to allow public input on moving inside millage. This board has met all legal requirements. At its regular monthly meeting, May 10th, they held a public input session. 3 citizens came and rose and gave the board their input on this proposal. This board listened. They scheduled an unrequired second meeting tonight. They changed the regular meeting hours to allow more access to more people. You just saw Mr. Wolf's presentation on the upcoming needs of the district. Without additional resources, we have 2 options. We can allow the buildings to go unrepaired and accelerate the end of their useful life, or we can take millions of dollars from the educational side of the program for the next 10 to 15 years to address these needs. Tonight, again, the board is asking for public input. Public input is not a debate or a question and answer session. No decision will be made tonight. The board will sit and listen to your comments once again. A decision will be made in open session in this very room, June the 28th at 5 o'clock. This meeting is being broadcast to the public. Anything said here tonight, the public can hear at the same time or go on YouTube and watch a replay. If you would like to provide input to the board, please step forward, print your name on the blue sheets, step to the podium. You have 3 minutes to address the board. And if there's a line or multiple people, please be respectful and social distance, please. Thank you.
I have those blue sheets, and I will call each of you by name to come forward and speak. And just as a disclaimer that we give to all guests who come to our board meetings, we welcome your time here. You are welcome to stay until the gavel bangs and says the meeting is adjourned. However, if once you speak, you do need to be somewhere else and you need to leave, we will not take offense at folks leaving early. So we just always give that disclaimer, especially our students when they're here through the school year and come for awards and presentations. A lot of times they have practices, studying, things that they like to do. So we've tried to make it a practice for the board to make it not be cumbersome for them or anyone else to come and address us, because we do welcome your input. So I will just go in order with the way the sheets have been given to me, and the first name on the list is Adam Ponnell.
My name is Adam Ponnell, and thank you for your time. As Mr. Wolf has stated, you do work for the community. So in that effect, I believe that the community should be allowed to get some sort of input. I know our treasurer has announced that input is not legally required, but just because something isn't legally required doesn't make it right. The people need to know what's going on. Perfect depiction of the iceberg. I love that. Tip of the iceberg is what the community knows. Bottom of the iceberg is what they don't know. If they're not here or watching, they're unaware of the situation. We appreciate the tremendous amount of talent that it takes to come up with these big numbers, but on the other hand, we do have to do what's right, and what's right is to put this on the levy so that the community can vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Holly Johnson.
I feel a little bit more organized tonight. At least I wrote it out, or we wrote it out. All right, I'm Holly Johnson. I'm a tax-paying citizen. I'd like to start off by saying I understand the school board feels there's a need for money to maintain their buildings. That is a part of owning and operating a business. But that does not mean that a previous tax levy was for construction for the high school should be twisted around and used to secure permanent funding for taxpayers' dollars, nor was it intended to have a portion of the taxpayers' dollars so graciously given back to us by the board that keeps 2.5 mils on top of a permanent 0.5 mils that's already from the elementary school construction levy. This would mean 3 mils permanently for the school board's use. If this continues or is intended, this not only breaks the trust of the taxpayers, it most likely ensures those who are up for re-election will not get voted back in. The board has not offered any details up until tonight on what was going to be done except a basic generic blanket statement of maintenance. In all my years as an Adams County resident, I've rarely seen a tax levy that the schools put forward not be granted. The residents of Adams County respect the schools and support you and will give you a chance and give us a chance to do so. How you go about doing this will matter, and it will be remembered. Don't break the trust. I know that you are permitted to do this by the Ohio Revised Code and Ohio law, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. I was able to pull the school district's 5-year forecast and other reports from the Ohio Department of Education. Your 2020 yearly expenditures show over $45 million that were spent out at the end of the year. You had an ending cash balance of $19 million. Not everybody needs a slush fund. Then that's what it looks like to the taxpayers, right, when they read the state reports. It's insulting that for the board to suggest that not moving forward with this decision will impact the quality of the children's education when the school already receives poor ratings year after year from the state and that is classified as a distressed school because of its poor grades. Even with all the money that you've already received from the tax levy, school ratings have been poor and are continuously dropping. Based on your reports to the state, 80% of your budget goes towards personnel. The superintendent just received a raise in a new 4-year contract. The treasurer received a raise as well. These two positions are the most highest paid in your school district. If your budget is distressed, why are we handing out large wages? Why did you purchase a $600,000 farm when it looks like to the taxpayer it only benefits a portion of students? Why is the board looking to make another large exorbitant porches on the bus garage and additional land? This appears like mismanagement if you just look at it from an outsider. The board was fully aware that this levy was coming to an end, and it's not the taxpayers' fault. The board did not plan accordingly. It's not right to set up a permanent fund for the taxpayers' dollars. This is not what the levy was originally intended for. The levy was for construction of the schools, and that's what the people believed. They have been completed, and the payments will cease to end at the end of the year. If you need money for the maintenance and the other things, the right thing to do is to bring it back to the voters. Give them a chance. They'll do the right thing, and so should you. Thank you.
Thank you. Kirsten Hall. Pardon me? I'm good, thank you. Okay. And I apologize if I pronounce this wrong. Susan Powell? Powell? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that was a V, not a W. Sorry.
I wrote it down too. I have poor memory. Hello, my name is Susan Powell. I spoke at the last meeting. We were invited to leave after we spoke so that we didn't have to stay for the boring stuff. I heard that the boring stuff was granting raises. While I wouldn't deny a hard-working person a raise, the timing was in poor taste. We had just heard woe is me story about needing to keep our tax dollars to fund things, and then you okayed raises. That tells me that you already have money in the budget, and that mine and the rest of Adams County money doesn't need it so desperately that you have to sneak in the back door and take it. Or the other scenario is that you were never planning on giving our money back and that you were already spending it. I would hope that's not the case. I challenge you to prove that you're not already spending the money by putting it back on the ballot to be voted on by the people you're taking the money from. If you do this, you're taking money from young people who never had a chance to vote on this because they were too young at the time to vote when we voted for these schools, and are now of age and getting penalized for something they never voted on. We voted in good faith to help fund the schools. We were told that we would get our money back when the schools were paid for. Was that a lie or just to get us to pay for it? If you don't put this back on the ballot, then I will never vote in a positive manner for anything for the schools again, because my trust will be gone. Put it back on the ballot where it belongs. Earn my trust. Remember a lesson we teach our children. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Be the example to the children you were elected to sit there to represent. Don't steal money from their future without their consent. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Fraley. Okay. Is this everyone on Inside Millage? Yeah, okay. Yes, sir. I was going to call on you, Mr.
Thank you.
Spencer.
Madam President, I cannot, as an elected judicial official, speak about the millage.
Right.
It's against the Code of Professional Conduct. But what I did wish to do, and what I had secured a point on the agenda, that I contacted the Executive Secretary, Ms. Regina Naylor, I think 14 days ago or 12 days ago, and I asked to be placed on the agenda tonight, and appeared anticipating I would be on the agenda. The topic that I wish to discuss was the wonderful opportunity that we have through the Ohio Means Jobs to secure tutoring and to secure full-time tutors, an educational opportunity that we've been already conducting and graduating students. Unfortunately, I came in tonight and learned that I had been removed from the agenda for no good reason. I'm aware of the 3-minute blue sheet, but I was removed from the agenda for no good reason. I would certainly ask this board to investigate who and why I was removed as an official to bring a beneficial cost savings, tax savings to this board. It would be a tremendous cost savings. Where you've shared before, you would share no cost now. None. And we are graduating students. We are bringing them up to the full achievement of credits that they need. And we're doing that with the most troublesome students that you have, that this administration has elected should not be within the schools. We've continued to educate them. I have no idea why I would be removed from an agenda. I hope you will find out. And I would ask, due to the lack of communications that has been prevalent of recent, that the board would consider appointing a board member to be a liaison of communications to the juvenile court and to the administration. I would respectfully suggest it be Dr. Shipley for her educational background as a professor, and also for her business background in running a division of Shawnee State. At this time, I must respectfully advise that I will go ahead and excuse myself with all due respect to the community. I'm going to go ahead and go back. If I'd have known I was off the agenda, or if somebody called me and told me I was removed from the agenda, I would have stayed and taken care of my sister who's at the manor.
No, Judge Spencer, just to clarify, I was told that I did, even though I didn't have a blue sheet, that you were going to speak also. So I did fully intend to call
Sure.
upon you to speak.
Well, what I'll do is...
so I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that,
What is
sir.
the protocol for getting on the agenda? I thought I did that with the executive secretary.
Speak to that. Judge, as I spoke to you before this evening, I spoke to my secretary, Regina Naylor, and I was out of the office the day that you called in to be put on the agenda, and I spoke to her just today, as God be thy witness, okay?
Oh, please don't. Please don't.
But I'm not telling you that as the story goes. As she said that I told the judge that I understand he's on the agenda. I was aware of it. Charlie knew it, and you were not put on there. She told you that you needed to fill out a blue sheet, and that's what she told me. So if you would like for her to communicate with you, I will be glad for that to happen. But I knew you were speaking tonight. That's why I approached you before the board meeting.
Well, you approached me and told me to fill out a blue sheet. I advised you that I was on the agenda, and you advised me, no, I was not on the agenda. So we leave it there. Unfortunately, we're going to be delayed. Your next meeting, I will be out of town. So we'll be delayed about 30 days now to your next meeting before we can institute that which was available at the 1st of June. We're going to lose a whole month of education for these kids that are struggling and far behind in their achievements, and for no apparent reason to this court or to this official. So I would ask you to consider appointing someone to be a liaison so that the court can communicate with the administration. I was available for the last 12 days. I was available today to call and say, hey, we've changed the protocol. I get received no such communications. I'll go take care of my sister, and I respectfully thank you for the opportunity to speak. And the citizens, it's a blessing to have the citizens here speaking their voice. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wanted to address the board but that I did not have a blue sheet in front of me for? Okay. Okay, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and for speaking. And as I said, you are welcome to stay for the remainder of this meeting and here as we conduct our general business. And this board has listened, and we will take into consideration what we've heard. Okay, at this time, I have the superintendent's report. Mr. Sees.
First of all, I want to state the obvious. The obvious being today was the last day of school for the kids. When I say you forget the obvious, we went through an entire school year pretty safe and sound. I know these two gentlemen over here, you have a safety director, assistant safety director. We've invested a lot of money in safety. It's important. And when I think about the buses finishing today, and you get the call from the bus transportation supervisor that all is good, that's pretty important. So I think we need to recognize that, the safety for all our kids. The second thing is we have a group of kids beginning Thursday from this building that have a ceremony for graduating from their programs. We also have a group of kids from West Union on Friday, Saturday from North Adams, and Sunday from Peoples that are graduating. So certainly congratulations to all those kids. The other thing that I wanted to make mention to the board, it's kind of off cuff, but I sent you, and I'm as proud as anything of this, and because I know what it was like at the beginning of the year when COVID hit all of us by, we didn't know how to deal with it, right? You got masks and you got social distancing, and it's not what we do. I mean, it's not how our business is set up. So we reacted. We put a plan together. We did a reopening plan. We worked with Dr. Blitzel. Thank you, Dr. Blitzel. I certainly appreciate all the work, and I can't even tell you if there's one person I talk to more. Nobody I've talked to no more in this last year than Dr. Blitzel. 10:30 at night. Hey, Rich, we got to quarantine 3 teachers. So then there's a principal walking in the next day going, what do I do? Maybe I pull a custodian to come in here and clean, or to teach the class. And so kudos to everybody for getting through this year. It's been a really, really difficult year, but I sent this to the board, our attendance percentages. And the reason I did this, they were picked from August 24th to 28th, in October, January, February, April, and May. The percentages are amazing. We went in person 5 days a week. Now, I can't tell you the hate mail I got, the blood on my hands, the phone calls that left on my phone, what am I doing? And I get all that. This board, I thank you for allowing us to bring these kids 5 days a week. And I also thank the board, and this is just the way it worked out. This is what happened. We gave our parents, and I tell people this, probably the worst business, or the best, maybe a good business decision, but the worst educational decision I ever made. We let people in our district sign up online. So we lost, and literally lost, and we have kids behind. We lost anywhere from 600 to 700 kids initially. They went online. And I know from the testimony back from principals, or from Marla Jones, who runs the online program, and Moni, who was helping her, when they weren't equipped for that. Who is? Any of you? Not me. I don't like online classes. I like being in a room with the teacher. But we did that. But what that did was, that loss of 600 or 700 kids allowed us to socially distance and then have that 5 days a week. If all the kids would have gone 5 days a week, we probably would have had to pull something like a neighboring school district did and go AB. So I sit before you as proud as any superintendent's ever been, because I'm grateful that we got the kids in here. Sad part of it is many opportunities were lost. We'll never get that back. A lot of things were canceled. But I think we did what we could do, and I'm grateful for that. So to the board, I hope you take a look at those attendance percentages. The only other thing, Charlie, I want to mention is on the horizon. And to that, we had to produce an extended learning plan. So we're not done trying to catch these kids up. The fun is just beginning. We've got to get these kids in with the federal dollars we've gotten. We've gotten some money from the ESSER. It's called the ESSER 2 grant, where we'll be able to hire tutors. We'll be able to bring in some mental health counseling that we've never had before. So I think we've put together a pretty good plan to utilize that money to help our kids, beginning after, I think, July 1st, when we get the monies, and then moving forward all through next year. So we're grateful for that. The other thing I wanted to mention, and we all love state testing, right? So the House right now is taking a look at House Bill 73, which reduces the number of end-of-course exams required for graduation from maybe 5 to 4. And it's kind of exciting to see that as an educator, watching these kids, kind of get tested to death. I think sometimes we've kind of lost our way. But Charlie, that's all I have to report.
Okay.
Tonight.
Okay. Under education, curriculum, and instruction, I see that we have 2 agreements here, agency agreements and an MOU. I would entertain a motion, and you need approval, right? A motion and a second to approve those agreements.
So
And
moved.
these are, I would ask that we just give a brief review. These are agreements that we typically do renew each year for services that we receive for special education, and the MOU.
The MOU it's this. There is I think somewhat of a crisis in education in terms of teachers in maybe certain areas. But what this MOU allows us to do, in the event that a teacher has not passed an Ohio assessment for educators, instead of being eligible for a multi-year limited contract, we would be able to exercise a 1-year contract. So, it is beginning to get a little bit more difficult, in certain areas to get teachers. And so that's what this memorandum of understanding does, and it's
That also gives them time to retest. Lots of
Yes.
times it's that they didn't pass a test, or maybe they're at one course short, and yet they're still qualified because they have a degree, but not necessarily in the subject area where we need them, so.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion in a second.
So moved.
Mr. Riley has moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Davis has seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Best?
Yes. Then at this time, on facilities, transportation, and security, Mr. Parker, did you wish to address us on security?
Sure,
If you'd like to give us an update?
yes.
Yes, sir. For any of you that might not know, this is Mike Parker, and he is our Director of Safety here for the schools.
Yes. Of course, wrapping up the last day of in-person school for the most part, except for we do have a few people coming throughout the summer in different attendance areas. Of course, we will still be providing security and safety for those students as well. But we have finished up in the year of COVID, if you would, with safety drills that looked a little different, but we have wrapped everything up, and everybody is doing phenomenally great staff-wise. Educating the staff, and that's less we have to do in the future, so we direct that towards the kids. So I just got to give big kudos to all the staff in each building, knowing what to look for, knowing the signs, and ultimately the demeanor of people, and recognizing that and forwarding on to us as well. Secondly, moving forward, of course, I'm already focused on the 21-22 school year, and with the new upcoming approach of House Bill 123, that we still don't know exactly what it looks like, but we're getting geared up for that. And what that is basically Ohio Department of Education relinquish the safety portion of schools to the Ohio Department of Public Safety, and they are mandating a bunch of additional training and with staff and students as well. So we're looking forward to doing that as well. So that's really all I have.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Okay, I see under facilities, transportation, and security, we have our extended field trips under that portion, and we have some athletes, I believe, traveling for some events. We have North Adams High School girls basketball team to Huntington, West Virginia, June 24th, and then the high school varsity volleyball team to Columbus on July 25th and 26th. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions concerning these trips? If not, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve said trips.
I'll move.
Dr. Shipley has moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Campbell has seconded. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Best?
Yes, and at this time, we have in our agenda, if there is a need for an executive session, and there is a need for an executive session for G1. Always have to get the language for this one. The Board of Session may hold an executive session only after a majority of the quorum of the board determines by a roll call vote to hold such a session, and only at a regular or special board meeting for the sole purpose of the consideration of any of the following matters in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code. And G1 is the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of a public employee or official, or, I went on down the line, no, investigation of charges, complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual, unless a public hearing is requested. So, okay. I would entertain a motion in a second, and I would move for that executive session. If I may have a second, please.
I'll second.
Mr. Riley has seconded. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Best?
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, at this time, the board will adjourn for executive session. It is 8:04. We will endeavor to keep the executive session as brief as possible. If you wish to remain, we will conduct the rest of the meeting when we return. Let the record show the board has returned to general session at 9:18. Okay, at this time, we are to the personnel portion of the meeting. I would entertain a motion and a second to vote on all of those listed as typical year end. We have several there listed for consideration. Do I have a motion? So moved. Mrs. Campbell has moved. Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Riley has seconded. Are there any additions, corrections, or changes to personnel?
We should be removing a couple, and then we're just to clarify, we're only looking at items 1 through 5 here, right? There'll be a separate motion, a second for 6 and 7?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, 1 through 5.
Right, we're going to pull.
Changes under item 3?
We're pulling 2 employees.
Okay.
Xavier Foley and Joshua White.
Will be removed from the list for tonight.
Right, we had the resignation of sub-cook Brenda Jackson effective May 25th.
Yes,
As
yes.
an addition.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Any other additions or corrections to 1 through 5? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes. Now, under item 6, we have employment of administrator. We are being recommended Brett Justice as assistant principal with a 2-year contract at West Union High School.
That's actually a resolution to untable.
Oh, I'm
that
sorry.
motion.
Okay. Yes, that is correct. We did. So we'll
We
first
tabled
move.
it.
We will first have the resolution, the vote for untabling that resolution.
So moved.
Mr. Riley has moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Davis has seconded. Now, at this time, do I need a second motion? I need another motion and a second to,
Don't we need to vote on it?
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes. Now, at this time, I would entertain the motion and the second to hire Mr. Justice.
No, there's 3 administrators listed there.
Carl Berger.
Oh, okay, we're going to do 6 and 7 together?
We've already done 6.
6 was the untabling, 7 is the hiring.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see them listed again down there at 7. Okay, I entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
Mrs. Campbell has moved. Do I have a second? I'll second. Okay,
Okay, I want to go on record as saying that, I will go with this, but I'm hoping that we will start recruiting and looking at some younger blood as assistants and principals to mentor and bring them up rather than hire.
okay. So noted. Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Best,
Yes.
Mrs. Shipley,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, under old business, we have upcoming graduations. Thursday night here at the CTC, we will have an awards ceremony for our CTC graduates.
Is it here at the CTC
West Union High
this
School.
year?
It's at West Union High School this year, I'm sorry. And
It's at 6 o'clock.
is everyone planning on being attendance for that? For that presentation? Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yes.
I had 4 o'clock
Okay.
down. It is 6 o'clock. That's confirmed.
Yes.
We
It was in that
we
email.
are not called upon to hand out any certificates or anything there. We simply attend and support for those students. And then we will have Friday night, West Union High School.
What time?
I've got down 7 o'clock.
And we typically try to be there about 30 minutes early, so like 6:30 for the board. And Mrs. Campbell and Mr. Davis will be presenting diplomas at West Union High School. And then the next day, on Saturday, we have North Adams High School. Typically, we're at 2. Are we still scheduled for commencement at 2?
1:30.
It's 1:30, so we need to be there at 1 o'clock. And Dr. Shipley and Mr. Riley will be presenting at North Adams. And then Sunday, we have Peoples High School
2 o'clock?
at 2 o'clock, so we'll need to be there at 1:30. And Mr. Riley and Mrs. Campbell will be presenting there.
So on Friday night, we need to be here at 6:30. Saturday night, we need to be here, or Saturday afternoon, we need to be here at 1. And then at Peebles, we need to be there at 1:30.
Yes,
On
yes.
Sunday.
Correct. And then if the program starts for the CTC at 6:30, we will plan to meet at 5:30
It's at 6.
on Thursday night.
It's at
At
6.
the West Union.
It's
Yeah,
at
it
6.
starts at 6. If we're going to each one 30 minutes early,
So we'll be here at 5:30.
yes, so we'll be at West Union High School 5:30.
All right.
Okay? Anything else to come before the board under old business at this time?
I would just like to say I missed last year and this year both the presidential awards that we always did for the elementary.
Yes.
I've seen many of them on Facebook, or a few
Yes.
of them on Facebook, and I know that's quite an achievement, and the kids are really proud, and I'm assuming that they had an assembly at school, or they did something to make it special. So
They all got I know they all had their names called and received their certificates. Now, I don't know if they did that in assembly or they called them individually, but I do know I got feedback that they got called to the office and received those
Okay.
awards. Okay. Next, any need for further executive session? Hearing none, I entertain a motion and a second for adjournment.
I have your next scheduled meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
June the 8th and 9th as the board workshop at
Yes.
at McCoy's.
Yes, June 8 and 9.
what are the hours?
And we will meet on June the 8th. We'll plan on 9 to 2 each day.
Okay.
On June 8th, we will be discussing financial matters. Mr. Wolf, we will possibly need you there that day as well on June the 8th.
I have pressure to the 9th at the ending time. I'll probably have to leave by like 1 o'clock, so if
Okay.
we need to move that earlier, I know that 9 is, just let you know ahead of time that I
Okay.
may need to leave at 1 if we need to start earlier or
Okay.
get certain business taken care of
Which
first.
day?
The second day, the 9th.
On the 9th?
Yep.
Okay. Let me look at what's on the list then to be reviewed on that day. And if it's more than we can get in, we may have to try to move to 8 to 1.
The church is taking a trip and they're leaving at a certain time.
Okay. All right. Oh, is that the fishing trip? Okay.
Just put it out there.
All right. At this time, I would entertain a motion and a second for adjournment.
So moved.
Dr. Shipley has moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Mrs. Campbell has seconded. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Shipley,
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis, Mr. Davis, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Mrs. Bess.
Yes. Let the record show that the board has adjourned session at 9:27.